I seen it, but it don't.
Amagwa, Panuel Jerusalem, Standard Face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath, or rather the new moon. Barakata Yahweh, Basham, Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natamanawa, Hakadash, Bashalawam, Taware, Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the new moon in peace. Thank you, so be it. The Ali Ma'ar Shariah Machad, Psalms 121. Anya Rayam Yam Yam Ya Oh Harim Mayan Yabawa Zarya Yabawa Mayahawa Shamayam Waratazad La Ganathan Lamawat Regalia Yala Yanawam Shashua Marka Hana La Yanawam Wala Yashan Shashuma Yashvele Yahweh Shemaria Yahweh Tazalia Ayo Yad Yim Yim Yad Yawamam Hashemash La Hakaya Wayarak La Bali Yele Yahweh Yashemaria Makab Right, Yashamar, Napasha, Yahweh, Yashamar, Habalakya, Wabuayab, my Thawa Aib, I will Basham, Yahweh Shak, the water, Aman.
Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharallah, hear, O Israel. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad.
Deuteronomy 6 and 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord.
Amen. Tapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abinawa Shabbat Shemayim Kodesh Hayya Shanka Yahweh Malakwat Khat Taba'a Rotazawanka Hayya Aisha Baratazad Kaba Shemayim Rotamanawa Lakham Yawam Zad Wasalakanawa Kabawatnawa Kasalaknawa Kabawatinawa Wala Abiyanawa, oh Messiah one above, how was Shinawa, Marai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Wa Allah, Wa Thapara, Why Walam, Aman.
Matthew 6 and 9. After this manner, therefore pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'ai TAZA, the Ten Commandments. La'ad, Yahayat, Lakayat, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpanyat, La'ad, Taishat, Lakayat, Pasol, Bala'ad, Thaibadam, La'ad, Talakwakat, Shamwat, Yahawat, Alahayakat, Lashawat, Zakat, Ath, Hayawam, Hashabath, Lakodashwat, Kabad, Abiyaka, Wa Amaka, La'at, Taratazak, La'at, Tana'at, La'at, Taganab, La'at, Tainad, Shakur, La'at, Takhamad, Ko, Asherat, Lara'ika, Aman.
Exodus 20 and 3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow thyself to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Aman. Yeshabah, be seated. Barakateh Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, and now Paria Gapan Tuara Aman. La Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Yasher Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakata Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakawam, Abiyar, Wanawa'e, Aliwan, Malak, Shal, Shamayim, Waratiza, Wakal, Dabarim, Kayayim, Wagam, Amashiach, Mayahawe, Adawanawe, Ahabnawe, Apalat, Yawaitiza, Yahawashai, Zakarnawe, Yahweh, Baratazawan, Ainka, Yasha'ala, Aizarnawe, Banai, Wasap, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawe, Yam Yam, Naitha, Kayahumyam, Makudam, Babakushai, Shalak, Mike Allah, Watazawadak, Alahayam, La, Maganawa, Rapharnawa, Washamar, Alnawa, Bakur, Shalak, Haruka, Shau, Yahushai, Lanawa, Lalabadnawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Thabawana, Wada Aith, Shau, the Barka, Basham, Yahushai, the Wada, Tham Yad, Waiwalam, Man. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the law. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Natan Lanawa, HaTawabat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us light to see. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Natan Lanawa, Awar, Lara Awat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Natan Lanawa, Quran, Hayo, La Korab, Ha'aim. You shall go up, you see that. All right, so Shalom Yasharella. So Shalom everybody that's here in Philly, Shalom everybody listening in on teleconference, and Shalom everyone watching on live stream. Welcome to Ha Yasharella Kanas, or the Congregation of Israel, where we teach that the descendants of slaves, as well as the indigenous peoples found mostly here in the Americas, that includes North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean, make up the southern and northern kingdom to the 12 tribes of Israel, once lost, now found, and that we have fallen to a lower state politically, economically, even religiously, because we broke the laws of God, found the Bible given to us by Moses. We come out of this lower state that we fall into by turning back to these commandments we broke by following Jesus the Christ, or the anointed Savior, who did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth. So one way we do that is by keeping the Sabbath holy, as well as keeping the new moons holy, because the new moon is a type of Sabbath. You know, the new moon comes in every time we see the darkness completely of the moon, right? When it's fully dark, we know that's when the new moon comes in. And when we read the scriptures, it lets us know that what we use this particular holy day to tell time when it comes to our calendar, when it comes to keeping the holy days, as far as knowing when to keep which one. So we happen to be in the 6th month, which I'm going to switch here on the banner. I'm going to show you what the Hebrew would say. But where is it? So now, if you look at the bottom, you've got first word here being Ashar, which just means happy. Then we have Chadash, which just means moon or new moon. And then Shasha, which is how you say sixth. You look that up. And then finally, Yasha Allah, as far as the modern characters. That's how we would say the happy sixth new moon, Israel. All right. So like we normally do, let's go into a couple new moon scriptures. You'll notice that in the title, I was trying to figure out whether I wanted to call it righteous numerology or the beast number. I guess since we're focusing on the beast number in particular, I'll just talk about that and show how it ties into what one could call righteous numerology. The reason why I mention it is because usually when you see numerology mentioned out here in the world in different philosophies, it's usually something pertaining to the left-hand side. Oftentimes, it's something that the so-called Jews, not the real Jews, partake in, especially when you go higher up in the higher ranks. When it comes to dealing with numerology, or they also refer to it as gematria. But now in the scriptures, on the right-hand side, you have an application of that when it comes to certain prophecies, and we'll just touch on the number of the beast as a particular prophecy. We'll see numerology at play. So we'll touch on that. We touch on after we read a couple new moon scriptures, because what you'll notice is when it comes to the world, they'll take things that are in the scriptures and then change them or twist them or move things around. And then people who don't know the tree of life, which is the laws, statutes, and commandments, they might get confused by other doctrines out there that may even claim to be the tree of life, but actually aren't. And they'll read those and go, oh, this must be righteous too. But why is the system different than what I read when it comes to the commandments? It's because it's not the tree of life, it's something else. But let's check this out. First, write down for your notes. My name is Nabi Azarbabal, if you guys don't know already. But just write down for your notes that according to the Gregorian calendar, it would be August the 15th, 2023. But then according to our calendar, it would be the 6th month and the 1st day. So we'll start counting days on this day, as far as days of the month. We know we're still in the summer season. But Numbers chapter 10 and verse 10, start there. We'll find the law being given to us to keep this new moon holy. So Numbers chapter 10 and verse 10, just say comment, you have it written down. You got it back there? Numbers 10 and 10? I'm going to read and just want to make sure you have it. Okay. So, Khan, you have it? All right. So this is Numbers chapter 10 and verse 10. It reads, also in the day of your gladness and in your solemn days and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifice of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. So letting us know when we were in the wilderness, the Most High was dealing with Moses and Aaron as mediators to teach our people back then what we were supposed to do, not only after we left Egypt, but then going forward as a people. Now he's telling us in the days of our gladness, it says in our solemn days, it says in the beginning of your months. So we're in the beginning of the month now. So this is a time we're supposed to come together and do what? It says blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings. So burnt offerings and peace offerings were things we would normally do, and do them and bring them before Aaron and his sons, the priests, when you're reading the law. Leviticus chapter 1 going into the burnt offerings. Leviticus chapter 3 going into the peace offerings. Now, it's good to know what those are and how those work and the symbolism behind them, but we want to do them now because we're going through Christ as the ultimate sacrifice, right? It says that they may be to you for memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. So something we're supposed to always do in remembrance of the Most High. We're always supposed to keep this holy day. And then I always had to go to when we kept it, which we'll see in the books of Samuels and Kings, the books of history. 1 Samuel chapter 20. 1 Samuel chapter 20, and I'll start at verse 5. Just say come once you have that written down. All right.
1 Samuel
chapter 20 and verse 5. And I'm going to read this too. So 1 Samuel chapter 20 in verse 5, it reads, And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I shall not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. Right? So David's talking to Jonathan about a plan where they could figure out what to do about Jonathan's father, who's the king, Saul, and him seeking David's life without a cause. So they agree that he would hide out for 3 days until Jonathan could figure out whether or not the coast was clear, since King Saul sought after his life. So let's jump down to when it actually happens. So now in verse 24, it says, So David hid himself in the field. It says, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. So we're going to see our forefathers, the king namely, sitting down to what? Keep the new moon. That's why it says the king sat him down to eat meat. And then it says, and the king sat upon his seat as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall. Jonathan arose, Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. So chief members of his cabinet, like his son, like his general Abner, were there, but David, who was his armor bearer, wasn't there. So what did Saul think because of this? It says in 26, Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. So in the law, we become unclean through different means. Some things can happen to be it man or woman. Some things are specific to men, some things being specific to women as far as uncleanness. But all in all, if we're unclean for however long, and if it falls within a holy day, we're supposed to stay away. Still keep the holy day as holy as you can, but just stay away from a holy gathering, right? You wouldn't go to the tabernacle or go to the temple, right? So that's why we rehearse those righteous acts now with our makeshift temples that we have now, when we come together for holy purposes. So that's what he figured, because he knew David to be a diligent man. He said, yeah, something must have befallen him. That's the reason why he's not here. Maybe he's unclean for one reason or another. It says in 27, and it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore come up not the son of Jesse to meet, neither yesterday nor today? So I like this verse because it says, it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month. So this lets you know that the first day of the month had to have been the new moon, if the second day of the month is the morrow after the new moon. So a little logical reasoning there. It says his place was empty still. Remember, Jonathan and David already discussed this, but Saul is out of the loop. But now Saul's getting curious, and he asked his son 2 days in a row, not just for the new moon, but he'll sit down and eat with us on a regular. 2 days in a row, and he's not here. Like, what's going on? Surely you know. I know you guys are close. What's up? As you read on the story, it gets a little bit more interesting. But just a good example to always go to show our forefathers keeping the new moon. And then even in the Psalms, we're told to keep the new moon. And this famous song we always like to read on a new moon, Psalms 81. Psalms chapter 81. We're going to read verse 3 and 4. Psalms chapter 81, verse 3 and 4, and just say "come" once you have it written down. All right, so this is Psalms 81 and verse 3. It reads, "Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day." So we're commanded here in the psalm to blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day, which we did, this being a type of trumpet. In the Hebrew, you would pronounce this shawpar. You hear in the Yiddish with the so-called Jews, they'll say shofar. But really in the ancient Hebrew, that the vowel is pronounced shawpar, which is a ram's horn. We also had trumpets made out of minerals like silver too. Like going back to Numbers 10, we had a trumpet that was made of silver that we made and used then. But nonetheless, we're supposed to blow up that trumpet, whatever it's made of, around this time. Then it says in verse 4, "But this was a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob." So showing us the God of the Bible, he's dealing with his people, Israel/Jacob. Because we know Jacob and Israel are one and the same, right? So a statute that we were always supposed to keep. And then, I like this one too. Last verse in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 66. Isaiah 66 and 23, second to last verse, actually. Where we see that the new moon isn't just over and done with, but it's something that we're always meant to keep and supposed to keep, and that we will keep even going forward into the future, into the kingdom. This being a future prophecy. And I'll touch on the New Testament verse that goes along with this too, just to hit home, and then we'll move on to tonight's little topic. So Isaiah 66 and 23, it says, "It shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith Yahweh." So this hasn't happened yet. This will happen in the future when we establish a kingdom, when Christ makes a second coming. But it says that what? All flesh is supposed to come to worship before God. When? Every Sabbath and every new moon. It won't just be a fringe movement where only have a handful of us, a remnant of Israel, that know what to do on Friday, Sunday, and Saturday sundown, or know what to do when the new moon comes in, to keep it a feast. In case we're wondering, since some questions may arise as far as the new moon and the Sabbath, what's the difference? The one difference pretty much being that on the new moon it's a feast, you can cook, as opposed to the Sabbath, you can't cook. But all the other laws that apply to the Sabbath apply to the new moon as well, when it comes to work for hire or work around the house, right? We can buy on the holy day if we're getting something, say, for the feast, if we weren't able to get it beforehand, right? We can apply grace in that sense. But you can cook on this day. But it should be a day where we don't do our own pleasures, we don't work for hire or around the house. We may have to work for hire depending on, if we work for ourselves, work for someone else. We may not have, personal time off days that we can add up. We'd always say to reserve those for the major holy days if you only have so many to use per year. But if you do have, means to control your schedule when it comes to work, then by all means, just work longer hours on those other days, and then just set time aside on the day where the new moon comes in. Try to balance it out. That way, you're getting in all your work that you need to during the week that a new moon comes in. And then the verse we go to in the New Testament, where we see even Paul talking about it, like as a reminder, letting us know that it's not going anywhere. It's not like when Christ died and rose from the grave, right? Died on the cross and rose from the grave, that we don't have to keep the laws anymore, including the holy days. So he's going to make that very clear in his letter that he wrote to our brothers and sisters in Colossae. So Colossians chapter 2, I'm going to read 16 and 17. This goes along with Isaiah 66 and 23. So Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16, it reads, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of the holy day, or the new moon, or the Sabbath days." So you'll hear so-called Christians sometimes bring this out, bring it out incorrectly and say, well, Paul is telling the people is what? Someone shouldn't have to judge you for doing this thing as if you're not supposed to. What Paul's actually saying is, no one should have to remind you to keep these things if you indeed are followers of Christ. No one should have to remind you to keep laws when it pertains to meat and drink, as far as things that are lawful to eat and drink, and things that are lawful, drinking or eating too much of them, right? Because that can become wicked too. Paul's saying you shouldn't have to be reminded of this. You should already know to do this. That's the right understanding. But like the scripture says, a wicked will find excuse, will not be approved, but find an excuse according to their own will. And that's what a lot of our so-called brothers and sisters, not so-called brothers and sisters that are into so-called Christianity, they'll try to push this understanding, this doctrine that just because we're dealing with the blood of Christ through grace, that we don't have to keep the dietary law or keep the holy days anymore. And that's just not true. That's why it says in verse 17, similar to what we read in Isaiah 66, which are a shadow of things to come. It says, but the body is of Christ. These things are a shadow of things to come. So letting us know, even during Paul's time, that this prophecy in Isaiah 66:23 hadn't come to pass. Even when where we're at right now in the 6th month and the first day, the year 2023, we still haven't experienced that prophecy about all flesh coming to worship before God when it comes to new moons and Sabbaths. So a good reminder to show our brothers and sisters that are in the world, oftentimes in the so-called Christianity. I say so-called because to follow Christ means to follow this as is written and rightly divided, contrary to popular belief, that we got to keep this new moon holy. There's other examples we can go into scriptures about our forefathers keeping the new moon and aspects of why the moon is significant, and we read those on other new moons as well. But what I want to discuss, since we got a late start, and throughout everybody who was able to still attend with us, whether it be in person or online or over the phone. Let's get into the topic at hand. This is something that came up during the Tuesday class, so I figured we cap this off during the new moon service, since it's something very specific, because we had a question about it when it comes to kind of the mark of the beast. So in the class last Tuesday, we went into this as far as what the mark of the beast actually is and how it's actually something spiritual as opposed to something carnal. Does that mean that Esau isn't trying to do physical things when it comes to keeping track of people or things or places? As far as him trying to be like the Most High, like it says in Isaiah 14. Sure, but is that the mark of the beast the scriptures talk about? We beg to differ, and we went into scriptures to show that. But what I want to go into is how to count the number of the beast, and to show how when we talk about the subject of gematria or numerology, right, where you take letters of different alphabets of different languages and then take their numerical value and then add them up, and those numbers add up to certain things. Like we said in the beginning of the service, you'll see them use this on the left-hand side a lot of times when it comes to things they'll have pertaining to celebrities, to world leaders, to heads of companies, right? Where you'll see certain things that they may say or do, performances they might do will be set up during certain dates and times, or they'll wear certain things during those dates and times. So these are all things that they do on the left-hand side, which are pretty much a corruption of what we're supposed to do when it comes to coming together to keep the righteous holy days at a righteous time, wearing holy garments, right? Professing things that pertain to godliness, not things that are of the flesh or of the world, as we see the stars of this world do, and that they'll try to parade out there. You got different YouTube channels like they'll go into this. I can't remember some of them off the top, but like two popular ones, like his brother from Detroit called Call Me Kinfolk. He'll do these videos breaking down celebrities that deal with like numerology and stuff. And then there's other Edomite out in Washington, the West Coast. He has, I think, a channel called Gematria Effect News, where they kind of go into different current events and break down the numbers behind it and all that. So let the wicked do what they're going to do, right? Let them defile themselves. But let's understand that these things have a righteous original purpose as far as how the Most High ordered it when it comes to His will. And a key place we can find that is when we talk about the number of the beast in particular, and how we can figure out what this is and what it's actually talking about, and not get confused by any doctrines out there that might claim, oh, the number of the beast is this, or the number of the beast is that, right? So let's get the mention of the number itself. Let's go to Revelations 13, in the last verse, chapter 13, which is 18. And I had this on a 3x5 card, but I reproduced this on a Google Drive. So I'm going to share that with you guys now so you guys can see it. Let me see if I can maximize so you guys can see what I'm writing down here. Let me make it big. As big as possible anyway, so that you guys can see. All right, so as you can see in that first verse, Revelations 13:18, it reads, "Here is wisdom." It says, "Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." Right? So we heard this 666 a lot. Sometimes we might see it when we're, out and about, running errands, going to work. You might get orders, if you're doing like different services or tracking different numbers, for whatever you're doing for your work or profession. You see a number come up, and sometimes folks might go, "Oh," or people might make a joke and go, "Oh man, I don't want this one. Order number 666. I'll pass. Let me get another coffee." Because sometimes you might order a coffee or order something, and it's like order number 666. You'll see that. So it'll be a joke to people. But what's this 666 actually talking about? Why does it say, "Let him have understanding count it"? So let's get how to count this. Go to Revelations chapter 17. And we're going to read verse 5, which you read above in verses 1 to 4, which we've gone into, and we can go into again during the class. I just want to focus mainly on the number. This vision that John is having here about this beast that's red colored, that's got 7 heads and 10 horns, and it's a scarlet colored beast, showing how it's tied to Esau, him being red all over like a hairy garment when he came out of Rebekah's womb. And then a woman is on top of it, right? Decked with purple and red, and she has all types of precious stones, jewels on her. Her being a representative of the whole beast, as well as the whore on top, representative of Esau's government. America being the one riding on top of the beast, which represents the other Edomite governments that we see in these last days. But check this out, because this is very important, because in this vision, John is seeing something on her written on her forehead. So we talked about before, as far as you want to have the mark of life in your forehead and your hand, meaning how you think and then what you do, right? But if you don't, you'll have the mark of the beast on you, which is thinking and making decisions based on the world and what the world deems as the right way, right? But now what's on her forehead? It says, "Mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and abominations of the earth." So now this is important. I'm going to show you guys here on the Google Drive. You guys can see the screen why this aspect is important, right? So just for for ease, you can screenshot this if you want, if you're not able to write it down in time. But I pretty much copied and pasted it. Typed it up from another document that I have, but then pasted it here. This is part of the, I know for a number of you guys that have been, dial in the classes, and even that are here, sometimes after the service, if it's raining, we're going through some Hebrew lessons. So I've shared with you guys the Hebrew alphabet document and how to pretty much assign each number to each Hebrew letter, right? And I have this here so you guys can see. I can share this with you online too, if you like. Send it to your Gmail. The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, according to the modern characters, that's what you see in the top row. And then this middle row is how you would pronounce them phonetically, which is what you see here. And underneath that, the numerical value for each of those numbers, right? Which goes from 1 to 10, and then from 20 to 100, and 100 to 400, making 22 altogether. So we'll use this as a table to figure out these three things it says that's on this woman's forehead as far as how we get to the 666, right? So what you'll see here in the first thing I type, Babylon the Great, I type it here in the phonetic Hebrew, right? As far as how to say it or write it. And I put the dashes here just to separate between the different letters. So Babal, it would be two of these letters here and then one of this one here, right? So two of these, which is a Ba, and then a La, which that's how you would say Babel. And then Ha, which is the, an definite article. Then we have Gadawal, which is a Ga, a Da, a Wa, and a La. As you guys know that have been going into the Hebrew, we talk about how you cut off the final A anytime you connect the last two Hebrew letters, right? That's how you would say Babal Hagadawal. So now if you add up the numbers for each of these, right? The numerical value for each of the Hebrew letters, you get Ba, Ba, and La, which is 2 and 2 and 30. And then Ha, which is 5. And then Ga, which is 3. Da, which is 4. Wa, which is 6. La, which is 30. Once again, it's go up here to just double check. You add up all those numbers for Babal Hagadawal, it adds up to 87. But now I have to take that number and then add those numbers together too, which is 8 plus 7, which gives us 15. Because the whole key is to get down to one singular digit. So now 8 plus 7 is 15. I gotta do the same thing for 15. Add those two together, 1 plus 5, which equals 6. So that's 6 for Babylon the Great. So now we do the same thing for Mother of Harlots, which we see here, which the way you pronounce that, it would be Amma, which Amma is how you say mother, right? Like we say Abba is father, Amma would be mother. And then the of is understood, right? You only use the conjunction of on a certain cases, but here it's understood. Harlots, which harlot singular would be Zawan, but then when you have Wath, that's how you make a feminine noun plural. So Zawan Wath, that's how you would say harlots. So we have these together, A, which is 1, Ma, which is 40, Za, which is 7, Wa, which is 6, Na, which is 50, Wa, again 6, and then Tha, which is 400. You get 510 altogether. Once again, to add those numbers together, 0, of course, is 0. 1 plus 5 gives you 6 again. It says Mother of Harlots when we do the numerology on the Hebrew letters of how to say it. And then finally, we have abominations of the earth, right? Which the way we'll say this in the phonetic Hebrew first is Tha'ib Wath, right? Tha'ib meaning abomination, and then Wath is plural. So Tha'ib Wath, once again, the of is understood. Then we have the article the, which is Ha, and then Adama, right? Which is earth, right? Which is very similar to when we see Adam, because his name means mankind or earth as well. Since he was made from the dust of the ground, right? When you go back in Genesis. So Tha'ab, Wath, Ha, Adama. So we add up these letters, Tha, which is 400, I, which is 70, Ba, which is 2, Wa, which is 6, Tha, which is 400 again, plus Ha, which is 5, and then A, 1, Da, 4, Ma, 40, Ha, which is 5. You get 933, And just like we did up here with 5, 10, and 87, we want to make sure we add these together. So 9 plus 3 plus 3 gives you 15, and you want to make sure you add those two together as well. 1 plus 5 is 6. And it's funny because I remember when I was first learning this, when another brother was showing me this in the class, I knew about numerology from before when I was in the world, just studying different doctrines. And I was just really amazed at this. I said, wow, how did you come to this? How did you know to do this? And he just said, well, just Spirit came on a brother to look at this and look at the Hebrew and to look at the letters and the numbers that the letters represent and add it up. The Spirit has guided someone to actually be able to crack this open and see it here. So it's really interesting to really consider outside the 66 prophecy. We look at the Hebrew, what other things we might be able to unlock there, right? Right? But now the simplicity of it is when it comes to the Hebrew, while we can take up the numerical values of the letters, the real essence of it is just understanding what it's saying, understanding what it comes to giving us advice or counsel, and when it comes to our words and deeds. That's really the first and foremost thing. Like I said, this is more just like icing on the cake. But I wanted to cover this in particular just because there's a lot of chatter out there and a lot of incorrect chatter out there around the number of the beast and what it actually is. But now, according to the scriptures, this is how we break it down. Because you'll see, like I said, people in the world that claim to be Christians or into Judaism or even into Islam that'll go into like numerical values for like the Hebrew letters or the Arabic letters and try to come up with things and make certain claims. Like I remember there was this book that was pretty popular, I think back in the 2000s, called the Bible Code. It was either the 90s or the 2000s. And they try to go into the Hebrew and do the same thing, and try to figure out different events, world events, things that take place. And I would always just kind of keep those things at arm's length, because unless you're of the nation of Israel, unless the Most High puts the Spirit on you, right, to see His word and what it's actually saying, we would always want to measure those things against what the scriptures say and what we've actually seen come to pass. You just want to be considerate and mindful of that. But yeah, that's the breakdown. Let me make sure I scroll up some. Let me just hide this banner just in case you guys can't see everything. Or what I can do? I can put the banner back. And let me see if I hide one of these toolbars. All right, there we go. So now you're able to see the breakdown for those three statements clearly now. And I have the Hebrew alphabet there as like a key to kind of look at. And we break down those three words. And then these are the scriptures that we use that they came from, which is right here. Revelation 13 and 18, as well as Revelation 17 and 5. And one other thing I'll touch on before we close out, which I think is kind of interesting, and I'm sure there's probably other things we can look at where we can find this out. But if we go into Daniel, let's go to Daniel real quick, 12th chapter. Daniel, the 12th chapter. So we're going to be talking about this more, especially as we go through the books of Ezra and the Apocrypha. We're going to be going through this prophecy and then correlating it to other prophecies of like what Daniel's talking about, Jeremiah's talking about, what John is talking about here in Revelation, Ezekiel, Isaiah, etc., etc. But in Daniel chapter 12, right? The last couple of chapters of Daniel, he goes into some specific prophecies talking about things that are going to come to pass after him, namely in the empires that are to come. Because remember, Daniel lived on two, which was the Babylonians, as well as the transition into the Medo-Persian Empire under King Cyrus, where he was the one who prophesied the famous writing on the wall, right? When we go back into the book of Daniel, which was marking the end of the Babylonian dominance and the rise of the Medo-Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great. And that was around the year 539, 538-ish BC. But this is something that he says towards the end when he talks about certain time has to pass before certain things that are going to come to pass that he talked about in chapter 11 and chapter 12, and even in previous chapters too, when it came to the Greeks and the Romans, and even the empires that we're dealing with now. Daniel saw visions pertaining to all those. And we're going to read about those as well, and we read through Ezra's too, where we'll see Ezra's go into details where Daniel doesn't. But I just thought this was interesting. When you read in Daniel chapter 12, verse 11, and also verse 12, so Daniel chapter 12 and verse 11, I'm going to read verse 12 as well. It says, "But from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination to make it desolate set up, it shall be 1,290 days." Right? So I'm talking about some key events going to happen after him, when the Greco-Romans were coming to power, or the Greeks were coming to power, and the Romans following after that. In the events we will actually read about in history to us now, but there was still a future to Daniel when it comes to the Maccabees, and even up into the time of the Gospels. But it says 1,290 days, right? Then in verse 12 it says, "Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days." So it mentions these two dispensations of time, and I guess they're correlated when it comes to events that come to pass. Like I said, from the time that Daniel was in, which was like, I think the end of his time was during the time of the Medo-Persian Empire when he gave up the ghost, lead up to the time of the Greeks, and then followed by the Romans. This dispensation of time is touching on that. When you look at those numbers that are mentioned, and when you add them up, you see 1,290, right? When you add the numbers up of those total days, 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 9 is 12. But then when you see 1,335, when you add those numbers up, 1 plus 3 plus 3 plus 5, 1 plus 3 being 4, plus 3 is being 7, plus 5 is 12 as well. I think it's kind of interesting. So when we talk about how the Most High sets up his prophecy and how he has certain dispensations of times that are according to certain numbers, how they'll line up with righteous numbers like 7, like 12, like 10, right? And we talked about this before. When we go back into the 3 days and a half, right? That being an important prophecy about what we're experiencing during these times, right? That we just underwent from which was 1619 to about 1969, right? If you look at that 3 days and a half time period, that's like 7 divided by 2, so that's half of 7. I just think it's interesting. You look at these two dispensations of time, there's 1,290 and 1,335. They add those numbers, they both add up to 12. So, like I say, when you look at the scriptures, you'll see certain numbers come up more often than not. But when you look at how they do this on the left-hand side, they'll try to imitate this. But like I said, oftentimes it'll fall short. Or they'll do it according to numbers that they hold dear, or things that they deal with on the left-hand side when it comes to, magic, witchcraft, sorcery, etc., etc. But yeah, I just thought that was curious. So yeah, we'll touch on this in more detail in the classes if folks have more questions they want to go into, and as we find things. But the key is just to really understand and focus on the prophecies of the scriptures that we see that Christ talks about and the other disciples talk about, inspired by the Holy Spirit, as well as the prophets of old, and hone in on those things. And then let those things be our guide. And then, like I said, the numbers, like we're talking about now, kind of being just the icing on the cake. But that's the key, because everyone wants to be able to see the future, just like they did during Christ's time, just like they did during Ezra's time, Daniel's time. But then the Most High always will give us the keys, those of us of our ancestors, unlock those keys of what's to come, and show us things that these men of other nations, and even us that were on the left hand, dealing with the left hand path, would try to discern and would just fall short. We wouldn't be able to figure it out. All right, so hopefully you guys found that enlightening or interesting. If you didn't know this already, but yeah, Naya said you can just screenshot this. That way you have it as a key to use in case the topic of numerology ever does come up, or as they say, gematria, let alone the topic of the mark of the beast, or I should say the number of the beast. And then get this one too. Let me scroll up so you guys have the two scriptures. I don't know if I can get both at the same time, but you should be good just with that. These are the two verses. But I can't. I'm trying to get it to show all at once. Hold on. I have to hide the toolbar. All right, there you go.
Right at the top.
So you want to take a shot of that?
13,
You want to take a shot of that? Okay. So we'll make it end here, and we'll just say Shak Hadash and Shasha, which is the 6th new moon. Hope everybody was edified. I know it was a short lesson, but still, short doesn't necessarily mean worse or better. I want to make sure I cover those things. Like I said, I know we were talking about it during the class, but I didn't have the Hebrew titles for those things on their forehead. So I just want to share it with you guys. And like I said, definitely continue to watch and pray as prophets and prophetesses of the Lord, to see them as they come to pass. From all things we see, like I said, written throughout the scriptures, continue to watch and take note of, as Christ tells us, those coming in the name of Christ, deceiving many, wars, rumors of wars, famines, pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places, right? And what prophets of old talked about as far as the Most High come with thunder, earthquake, great noise, and the flame of devouring fire. Come. Keep an eye for these things. And know that as you see these things come to pass, that the day draweth nigh. So Shakadash, once again, definitely try to enjoy the new moon the best you can in the spirit. If you're able to take off, great. If not, just apply grace. Still try to enjoy it the best you can if you have to work today, which is the 16th on the day of August. And with that, we'll do the closing prayers. So Shalom Yasharallah.
That's the fastest new moon I've ever seen. You sure it's over?
Well, the new moon isn't over, brother. The class may be over, but the new moon continues.
What's up, bro?
I said the service is over, but the new moon continues, brother.
The what, brother?
The class is over, but the new moon continues, I said.
Yeah, I know that. I'm saying this is the fastest new moon fast I've ever seen. Did you go into these new moon scriptures? Maybe when I was in the bathroom. Oh, I was there probably half hour. I believe that. And climbed the gate back then.
God bless. Barak Yahweh, B'Shem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nanam, Paria, Gapan, Tuara, Aman. La Yahweh, B'Shem Yahweh Shai, Al Yasher Allah. Yeah, looks like it was about an hour. So English translation: Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Now we'll do the closing prayer. Amadwa, Panyua, Yerushal, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh Basham Yahushai Babakushai Shemai Lanawe I Thay Yam Yan I Thay Shalak Mike Ale Walalahayim Tazwatakim Lashma Ayu Barak Rapha Magan Wakhaziak Banya Yash Ale Washalak Lanawe Rabiim Kakamad Rabiim Da'ith Rabiim Bayanad Rabiim Sabalanwath Rabiim Mamawan Rabiim Akwa Rabiim Mahabiim Rabiim Haganad Rachanaya Wasalak Kau Katayanawa La Akim Wa Akiwak Wiyash Ale Thamgad Waiwalan Basham Yahusha Tawada Man. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. Send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins. For the brothers, sisters in Israel, always and forever, in the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh Basham Yahweh Shai Barak Nawe Wiyashale Wabat Yasaparian Shemai Yasharele Yahweh Elohoi Nawe Yahweh Akeh. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us in Israel in the house of books. And then we said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, one Lord. Now we'll do the prayer for the food. Yahweh Gadawo Basham Marawanya Yahweh Shai Babakushay Barak Makau Yanawa Shataywa Yanawa Yayan Yanawa Lacham Yanawa Shakarat Yanawa Zakhak Shal Hayarak Chadash Basham Yahusha Thawada Man. All right, so Laila Tuab Yasharala Washar Kadash. Most of us will talk to everybody in the upcoming Friday class.
Laila Tuab.
Laila Tuab.
Israel.